that he actually still won. So Destiny's making the argument that all of the people around him, even like his kids and stuff like that, are saying there's no election fraud.
I,
To where
I'm
he
more
should go ahead.
I'm more concerned of him thinking that he's a god.
Yeah, I'm trying to explain
I
that.
know that's a
I'm trying to show an example of how else does a person not think that he's God at this point? If everyone's telling him there's a different reality and he thinks no, this is the right reality, and it's a whole side of group of people, it's all the people around him. He I'm not saying it isn't possible he's right. It is. And this is why it's so complicated. And this is one of the things I want to pose to Destiny as a thought experiment. And that's why I was wondering if you know Destiny and Hassan's relationship, because they used to be like buddy buddy and they used to debate a lot. And then now Hassan, well, strong will never debate Destiny. He just strum as the fuck out of him, and et cetera, et cetera. So imagine that, like, there's a deep state and you're Trump, Destiny, and then everyone's Hassan. Everyone, because he's also was making the argument, different arguments of how, like, oh, he couldn't get anything passed. All these people were against him. You look at Trump. He's just blaming everyone else. And I want to go, well, yeah, they're all Hassans. They're all in on it together. They're all gonna be against him and anyone that's a disruptor. I'm not trying to downplay any of his bad behavior. He has a lot of it, and it's actually really bad, and we need to stop it. Like, I want somebody else instead of Trump. However, they also hate him, and we can see an incredible amount of really bad actions that they're doing against him, and why he can still believe that he didn't lose the 2020 election is because of how crazy and chaotic things, how level of the Trump derangement syndrome. Just imagine you think everyone has Trump derangement syndrome. So you know everyone else does, then of course you have to construct your own reality because you can't trust anyone else's. I think that's what's happening with Trump, but so that's good in some ways, wherever he's right, but when he's wrong, you're not going to get him or his base to be able to criticize it. And that's scary to me. That's godlike. Because when I say God, very specifically, I mean knowledge, source, authority of where truth comes from. So I'll end with this as an equivalent to show you where if a person says, Dr. Fauci says this, therefore it's absolutely true, and I won't criticize him, that is a knowledge, source, authority of how something works, probably vaccines or masks. And Trump thinks he is this person, this knowledge, source, authority that no one can criticize, and I have examples of this. And then his base doesn't think that as well. And that's going to just make going forward really, really hard. Like,
all right. All right, yeah. If that's how you're defining God or using it, I'm just very particular with how people use the word God, because whenever I ask someone, I always get a different answer depending on the person.
the most simplistic way I can say it is dogmatic knowledge, source, authority. So, where you analysis authorities, any thought leader where you get ideas from of what things are and how they work, whether that's your moral philosophy, your rules, whatever it is. Like if you read Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life and then you follow those, he's your knowledge source authority for literally changing your life, and the rules you now operate off of. So he's a knowledge source authority over many different complicated political topics, and then his base won't criticize him, and then he won't criticize himself, and that's really scary. Like that's the problem we're dealing with. And then one of the things I'm going to
I
constantly tell the right is like, hey, did you like it when you couldn't criticize Biden or Biden supporters? Why are you doing this same fucking thing? But I don't think I'm going to be able to get them to admit that. I think they're going to dodge that question.
right. Uh, like I know Trump is very bombastic. He's a character, and I think he has changed his positions from 2016 to now, and
Sure.
like he's
And
been
I see some
wrong,
good
and
there.
he's admitted he's been wrong. He's admitted he's been wrong, and from understanding where he's wrong, he's made a lot of changes.
I would like to
Like
see
just
where he's admitted he's wrong. I think I have one instance. I'm trying to remember it. Damn it, I should have had it. But
hiring James Comey,
okay. But
hiring
that's
hire
just
right,
saying you hired the wrong people. That's a very mild thing. That's something. It's true.
mild.
I think it's mild. because you're still blaming the person for being a bad person. You didn't know, so it was you just being ignorant. It's still mild. It's not him saying, I was wrong on this policy of immigration. He's never done anything like that. He's never admitted his policies of what he thinks is right is wrong on anything is wrong. Like, even when his crowd booed him on vaccines, he won't admit that he thinks he's wrong. And so this is scary. It's really scary. But go ahead. What do you think?
I can see he's admitted he's wrong on hiring several people. He may,
Sure.
yeah, he obfuscated a bit, uh, like, but ultimately he made the changes. Just look at his cabinet, like everyone, like Elon, Tulsi, RFK, and Trump were all Democrats at one point, and
Right.
all of
Yeah, I
them
agree.
are right.
Then
All of them
they're
are
all center right now. But and I like it.
mhm.
I think there's exciting things. I like a lot of his cabinet picks. And we're and this is where we're gonna see how much of God he thinks he is. Okay, I mean, did you see when Joe Rogan complimented RFK and then all of Trump and Trump's base attacked Joe Rogan?
Yeah,
Like, he's
yep, that's
it's
pretty
not
dumb.
like it's okay. So when we're talking about all the bad ideas on the left, there's a lot of them. There really is, but it's like they don't exist on the right, and it's not like the right is better at being able to correct for them. To where if you actually ask them outright if it's wrong, most of the time they're going to avoid your argument. I've been debating with people on the right for the longest time. I can't get any of them to admit any fucking thing for the most of the time. It's only like these very more like libertarian people. I can get them to budge a little bit, but it's again because they don't have a dog in the fight. So like if it'd be like asking a Hamas person what they think of Israel. Like when they have an incredible dog in the fight against something, it's so easy to see their bias. But so I can only get people that are outside of that bias to see it. That's not a big accomplishment. And that's also not exactly what we need. We need the left to be able to see their bias against the right and vice versa. And so it's trying to create the content that's going to do that to make sure that we can all care
Right.
for our biases. Because like it's so extreme. Like as soon as I say both sides, like I even just open up both sides have bad behavior. Like that's a triggering
Right.
thing for people. That's a real triggering
Did,
thing for Destiny that will make him like rage like crazy. I know it. Oh man,
did you see the Trump's interview on Joe Rogan?
I did, but I think it was terrible.
Right.
Terrible.
Terrible.
Yeah. Why do you
Terrible.
think it? No, seriously, seriously. So I'm actually going to push you here, and I'm not going to be trying to be mean and an asshole. But if you don't think that it was terrible, I am bothered by your level of ability to analyze things.
Well, terrible in what regard? I I I I have my criticism. Here's my criticism of the Joe Rogan Trump debate is that
Okay.
Joe
Yes.
didn't press
Yes.
Trump.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
Because
But
the new media platform and everyone's even calling this election the podcast election. So where we're vetting in a court of public opinion the people that are going to have the highest echelons don't get pressed on their questions. Not even Joe Rogan didn't even bring up what uh, Lex Friedman did. Lex Friedman asked Donald Trump point blank about how he criticized Joe Rogan and this whole thing blew up over RFK and his base went after him. But guess what? Trump lied. So actually, Lex Friedman, while he asked the question, didn't just let Trump lie. It literally easily I can disprove prove that he fucking lied. He just exaggerates and then gets away with it. Everyone hates that
right.
on the right. When they see Kamala Harris having that, that's the biggest thing they have for Biden is that when the actual press is literally asking Biden questions, they're all softball questions. But then somehow the right can't
Okay.
see that as long as it's going to make sure that they're going to win. They don't give a fuck about the actual rules. This is both sides.
Right. But the Joe Rogan podcast is not a debate. It is a interview. yes,
Uh,
Joe did press Trump on the election interference uh, thing.
very
I was
mildly, very
disappointed.
mildly.
Yes, I was
No,
disappointed,
nowhere
and
near good enough. Go ahead.
right,
Sorry.
but
Go ahead.
but main thing to remember is that this is an interview forum. In I remember what Joe said to Trump about having Kamala on his podcast, and what Joe said is that I just want to know who she is. I want to talk to her. I want to know what her hopes and her dreams and who the heck is she? That's what I want to know. And that was mostly what the Trump interview is.
Then you
It was
need
like,
two.
who
Then
is
you
Donald
need to.
Trump?
Okay, but then you need two different ones. And the first one needs to be actually okay. Okay, so do we need a press that actually asks hard questions? Do we
Yes.
need that? Is that a necessity for the integrity of making sure there's really good behaviors inside of our highest for congressmen, senators, presidents, mayors?
Yes.
You already said yes. I'm not trying to be a dick, but like, can we see
Yeah.
that? So people are constantly talking how the press, the mainstream media, is extremely corrupt. I agree with them. So we can't rely upon them to fulfill this job. So then we're going to the podcast thing where we're just doing the bro buddy thing, and then putting people in place and just using feelings and vibes and court of public opinion on very hasty judgment. Yeah, this is a good guy, so we're good. It's a
Right.
symbol of corruption. This is absolutely corrupt. We have a vacuum and we're not fulfilling that vacuum. We have a need of being able to vet people that uphold office. And when we're having conversations, especially these, because these are really long conversations, and I fucking love that. And I also love that we can have just a conversation with a person. Who are you? Fucking love that as well. But if that's
Don't.
all
Yeah.
people
Just don't
see,
confuse.
if that's all
Don't
people
confuse the
see,
two. Right.
well, what if Kamala did it and then Kamala won? Would you like? Too many people are going to be upset with where the most eyeballs are seen on the largest podcast, because Joe Rogan actually has a duty on the largest podcast. He can't. So let's just say it was like as simple as this, and this is a word we don't want. Where if the largest, where people are going to see the most. So let's just say out of all the podcasts, it was 95% of the viewership, and then it was just this softball, who the fuck are you interview, and let the person talk. And I love this kind of style. We need it, but it's the only thing 95% of the voters see. And because they're not watching CNN and MSNBC, because these are died off now, which, by the way, I don't know if you heard today, like, just hit the fan with MSNBC. They're actually underwater. They're closing doors. They're the people that I heard reporting on this. They're saying CNN is next. That mainstream media's died. They've lost viewership drastically since the election. Um, so things are
Shouldn't have
shifting.
to a greater group of people.
Right. But so we have this vacuum of this need of interrogating very good faith, high level interrogations into the people that are going to hold public office. And while the right loves that this won them for right for them this time, but like it doesn't mean the left will never wield that. Just like when we're saying, hey, cancel culture and freedom of speech, the left, you can see that you're using that now to get some wins here and there, but it will be wielded against you, and at some point it was. So this is a deep philosophical thing that we can see inside of the pattern, that whatever anyone ever abuses, and then due to the level of its abuse, okay, how bad is this at its worst? When either
Right.
side just controls the largest podcast. Okay, well, now we just need to get control of Joe Rogan. Dude, what if he gets assassinated tomorrow? Seriously. Like we have to
Then
see that we're at levels of shit's extremely bad. Everyone's focusing extremely heavily on whatever they think controls the keys the most, and they're going to put as much pressure as they want there. That's why there was multiple assassination attempts on Trump. That's why we are having more political violence. That's why we're having much more rhetoric that's incredibly dehumanizing from both sides. Like we're at not normal
right.
levels of things being good and stable. We're in extremely chaotic times. And I like the Trump win in many ways. but it isn't the complete saving grace if the right just repeats and uses different level whatever they can that's corrupted. That is still going to make the
Okay.
system not work good.
Right. The reason why why there isn't like a prominent podcast of that nature, because it has to be on a voluntary basis with whoever you're having a discussion with. Well, an interrogation at this point. You're going to be interrogating them, and yeah, people. If you're running for higher levels of office, or if your scientific credentials are being examined, it's not going to be on a voluntary basis. It's typically after an arrest or a trial or some sort of inquisition such as that. You're In order to have an inquisitional podcast, then it's not going to be voluntary. It's going to be compulsory.
I agree with you in the current realm of what we're in, though I would still disagree that I think some people are brave enough to want to do it and show that this would work. But I'm talking about the realized when we get all the thought leaders, we get everyone to see, okay, we all don't have the same judgment standard, and that this is a core thing that we need. Like, we're going to measure all these different things we need for a healthy society, like meritocracy and how we have healthy meritocracy. We're going to see this right here inside of our press, whether or not we need to ensure that how we do this vetting process, this court of public opinion vetting process that people greatly influences who people vote for. So this
Right.
huge lever, this huge deciding lever of how we make decisions inside of the United States of America. And
Well, yeah, yeah.
at any point we're looking for what is corrupted and is it unfair. And I think that this is an incredible key one, and that we need to make sure that we can brainstorm many different things. It's not just left up to you or me on how this works, of how we do this. How do we do this interrogation process with Joe Rogan or some other avenue, some other way, so that people can see, okay, well, you're expected to, as a human being. So when you go to vote, the good pressure that is expected of you is to be a knowledgeable voter, and you have seen the interrogations of the people that you are going. So not just the bro fest, not just the softball interviews, which are needed because people get to talk about their past and their stories and all those other things. Though maybe we'll find some way to get that in the interrogation as well. Quite often, anecdotal experience really is why people are there and who they are. But yeah, well, I mean, a lot of this has to do with like these different things that why can't you have
Right.
100% pure democracy? Why does that fail?
All right. Yeah. The thing is that you have to put yourself in the shoes of the person that's voluntarily going into that interrogation and having it broadcast to everyone. Like, what are the cost benefits analysis and going into is ultimately an adversarial confrontation with someone?
I think you're strawmanning
And
it, or at least think you're not understanding what I'm proposing. Because as you're
uh,
describing it, that's not what it is. It's not a
okay,
contempt. It's not a person that's interviewing you that has Trump derangement syndrome that's interviewing Trump. It's not that. It's not a person with contempt bias interviewing you. So instead of either a toxic nice bias, which is what the Joe Rogan interview was, and what many different things of when they interview Biden and Kamala Harris, that's what those are. Those are toxic nice bias interviews, softball interviews having no level of criticism. It's going to be good faith, good form criticism. It's going to be giving actual praise and approval for the good things and the good logic, and then any problems inside of their bad logic and the bad decisions, it's going through that as well with constructive criticism, not with a contempt bias. And this is and one of the things what I'll end with this real quick, where this is going to be one of the things we're going to present to the whole nation, that, hey, to have a democracy, this is a key element. You have to have the United States of America, or inside of your country. In the common sense of the average person, they all need to know that this is crucial. This is how we do meritocracy. This is how they're raised as they grow up, to where when they do anything from chess to how they learn science to everything else, how they judge themselves. And how they look at the range of their good and their bad is a constant thing that they have in their pattern recognition, which is what they also want out of their leadership. They want to see their leadership go through this trial by fire thing, because this iron sharpens iron thing is how we all become extremely well skilled sailors at specifically how this team problem solving complicated thing of extremely complicated political issues, because we all have this higher level epistemic standard. Like, look at these interrogation try like through that lens.
Yeah.
Like, who's the best interviewer to you that you think is really fair? That you think
Um.
actually like Lex? I think Lex Friedman sometimes can do that. I think Joe Rogan at
Yeah.
different times can do that as well. Like, he'll push people. There's many times he pushed people. When the one
Right.
he pushed the person with, like, you're not going to tell my 13-year-old daughter she can't have an abortion. Like, he went toe to toe with that guy.
Right. But yeah, the problem is that you need like multiple interviewers who are very knowledgeable in
Yes, I
the
agree.
subject that they're interviewing, and also they have to have high levels of good integrity.
Sure, for
So
sure. I agree.
that's a difficulty. Yeah, Joe Rogan pushed back because it's a subject that he's
Passionate about.
intimately aware
It
of.
it it hit it
Right.
hits home for him, right? And this is what I'm trying to say with everything. Everything's gonna fucking hit home for people. Like, you talk about kitchen table issues, that's gonna hit home for everybody. And there's easily like 5 different political issues that are really complicated, that we're all gonna get passionate about, just like Joe Rogan got that passionate
I'm
because we're
gonna
dealing with life or death stuff.
I'm gonna mute for a second. Go on.
Okay, sorry.
I just got mute for a second. I gotta talk to this guy, but you go ahead. Go on.
Yeah, sure. So I know I'm asking people to like realize a world that has not happened yet, but also to some degree it has. That a very strong pattern throughout history. And oh man, what was that pattern? There was some quote, I think it was on the PBD podcast of man, what was it? Integrity always wins. But for what I see is love and enlightenment has always won. We have progressed our ideas. Um, I think it was justice always wins. Um, and here's the really complicated thing is that standard by which we perceive something to be just, even right there, it's literally our judgment standard. You know, an action that we ever would ever see, a resolution we would ever see that Israel would deem just, or Hamas or Palestine would deem just. You know, this could be two different things when you're using a different standard. And this is the thing that we're going to get everyone to see is that we're all using different standards. There's very specific unconscious intellectual sin that we all do of the contempt bias and nice bias. We need to learn ourselves out of it, and doing so allows us to judge ourselves and each other in the complicated world around us with a much higher level of integrity, knowing that our that more things are portions of truth and maybes and high probabilities or low probabilities instead of these extremely high level, hardcore, absolute 100% truths to where even people today are like 1 millionth percent true. It's just like the level of language we have now for it's just gotten so absurdly clownish when we're describing how true something is.
Right. And yeah, the measuring stick I use for that is how much trust do you have in the other person.
Confidence, I
Like,
think, might be the yeah, trust and confidence. Yeah, yeah, that's a good
right.
question. Yeah,
You,
and even there,
and
like
yeah,
trust is complicated, right? Like There's how many aspects
Hmm.
of trust are there? You can trust some people to babysit your kids, but not with your money, like to not manage your money, or like we all have like these different things that we can or cannot trust people of to degrees, and then at some point, no, not like it just changes.
Yeah, I mean that's another reason why I don't think you can make everyone happy. Not everyone has earned the trust, and not everyone can know enough about like a certain influencer in order to like garner that trust. They're gonna
So
have their own questions.
So when I say we can make everyone happy, we're not going to make everyone happy in the exact moment. So like if an alcoholic who hasn't realized they're an alcoholic, you can't even convince them they're an alcoholic. You like, and they're asking you for the wine you have, and you don't want to give it to them because you don't want to feed their addiction. I'm not saying you're going to make that person happy in that moment, but you're ultimately going to make them happy because you're upholding them to a high level integrity standard. And when you do get to convince them of that they have a problem and what they deal with, and then they finally fix the problem, that you have made them happy. So even in that moment where you're not making them happy in that moment, your action is trying to uphold them to make them happy later. Like you're allowing that to occur at a later time because you're
Hmm.
holding them to a higher standard that you know will help them. But this is the thing of like what is true and when should
Right.
we do any action of taking away somebody's free will or their free agency. um
Well, well, yeah, you can only do so much. You can give them the tools necessary to make themselves happy. I think for me, with this whole project, I think it comes fundamentally down to uplifting the individual and healing personal trauma to a point where they can navigate their life in a more a far better fashion. Like I use personally, I use stoicism and like the 12 rules of life and all these different things that help me pull myself up from a dark place. And that's where I think the the cultural shift begins is on an individual level. You're sort of like having a shared like moral proclaiming a shared moral understanding is good, but in order for them to get to that point, they have to heal their personal trauma and admit that they're wrong, and then want to better themselves by engaging engaging in the process of heal of some sort of shared moral understanding that we're trying to do.
yeah, you said a lot of good things there with the what's that, stoicism and like how you think you could help um somebody right now. But here's one of the there's a lot of good there. So you and I both right now have current judgments over, what are the rules, what are the principles, what's possible, what's not. And one of the things that is, like, think of AI in terms of its ability, how good it is right now, and how at a certain point, because of how many different AI are working in conjunction with each other in the machine learning, their ability to reduce error and increase value just like is exponential at a certain point and just like skyrockets in terms of its knowledge and its ability to be efficient. So even here in our judgments, we're going to do very similar. So like with alcohol and what causes somebody to do this thing, we're going to just imagine for 5 years our national conversation, we're extremely all good at arguing and we debate alcoholism and what causes it, as well as addiction, and maybe alcoholism is very specifically different and does have genes or whatever it is. We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure out what the problems are, and anyone that ever has that problem in our society, we know how to help them a lot better than having to wait for them to hit rock bottom. And I'm not saying that's the argument you're making, but that's mostly how most people see they're not going to learn until they hit rock bottom. And there's a lot of truth to that. Sure, there's a portion of truth. But like, I'll just give you really like Johan Hari, who's been on the Joe Rogan podcast, I think 3 times now. He's written multiple books on addiction. He's traveled the world studying psychedelics and cocaine and people and alcoholism and what different countries have done in terms of like unbanning things like Portugal. And his theory, his is that it's the emotional instability that the person is so uncomfortable in their skin they can only chase any dragon that will allow them to not feel the incredible misery and pain and they do at every moment. um, and that's my view as well. But let's just say it is that, and we figure out how to deal with that. Oh, you have an alcohol problem? Yeah, we need to fix all your relationships. Let's fuck and your purpose and everything like that. We fix that, your alcoholism goes away. Like you can even continue to drink. We're gonna fix all these other things. Like maybe it's like that, or how people are using psychedelics. Like there's examples of MDMA and psilocybin mushrooms curing people's alcoholism. All I'm trying to show is on any complicated issue, after we figure out how that this is the problem, we all have a different standard for arriving at truth and how to argue, how to steam other people's positions. And once we all get on the same one and we continue to improve it, this will be this exponential thing of our ability to have this ethos judgment of being able to look at these complicated problems and figure it out together, because we know how to reach those thresholds of agreement together. I know how to care for my intellectual weaknesses, and so do you.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to, be able to see that future within my lifetime. There's,
What if it's going to
yeah,
happen
there's
next
a
year?
lot of.
What if it's going to happen in less than 6 months?
I would be skeptical of that.
Sure.
If it
I'm not. I'm
happened,
not. I'm not. I'm
I
not
would
asking.
be, I would be absolutely overjoyed if everyone healed their trauma and like became stoic and demure and conducted themselves in a pro-social behavior and all that. The thing is, yeah, why I'm skeptical is as like people are born every single day, and people like get trauma like from all directions. It's nature, it's nurture. People are being traumatized. People are their souls are being hurt, and yeah, there are people that's happening to a lot of people a lot of the time. So that's why I'm
Yeah, but
skeptical.
and the aim for this is, and I want you to be skeptical. It's again like what judgment center. But anyways, so with that, that's the thing though, is we're going to show everyone that the main thing that a person needs, like in so like a Maslow hierarchy needs, it's attachment dynamics. We need to be part of a tribe. We need high level so much from our interpersonal relationships, an insane amount. Left has been bastardizing that and downplaying that, but it's so we need so much from each other. It's incredible. Probably constructive praise and constructive criticism, I think, is probably out of every single thing that a husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, family can ever do together, and there's a lot of really important things we do together. That's probably the that's probably the highest and most important thing of what feeds our soul, what feeds our happiness, is hearing the feedback from the people around us of how good and bad we are. That allows us to know, and especially right there, if we know that their judgment standard doesn't have contempt bias, doesn't have the toxic nice bias in it, like we're measuring that. So we have so much confidence in them telling us how good we are as a father, how good we are at facing challenges or being stoic, how good we are at setting rules and adhering to them, how good we are at, every day we're working. All, dude, we'll go through a person's day and just a list of things that we're all doing, and we're actually, instead of avoiding things and we're only criticizing and complimenting when like things either get really bad or we're barely doing it and using the word perfect.
Wow.
We're doing it so much more on so many more things because we're so good at exchanging ideas and giving our feedback with one another. I think this thing right
Yeah.
here is it feeds elation in a person. I see this every time I tell my daughter because she knows how much I care about being right and why we play Fortnite together. So when I give her praise, how much she loves that and seeks it. She doesn't even like to play Fortnite without me because she wants me to be there seeing the good that she's doing. No one wants to do shit and no one sees it. Do you want to go
Right.
find the cure
Yeah.
for cancer out in the woods and no one ever knows? And you did an incredible amount of
Um,
work, you did an incredible amount of sacrifice. Everyone wants to be seen. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. The family unit is extremely important, especially in grounding oneself within a social framework and having and being reliant on that. I think a large thing we can do in order to help that is to ban social media past a certain like before a certain age, and like people are getting their social validation from social media instead of from their family unit who actually does love
I
them
agree.
and
I
does
agree.
care about them and wants the best for them in general. Obviously, there's outliers, but for the most part, family, your mom and dad, your brothers, sisters, they want the best for you,
Oh,
and that's
that okay.
we need to
Okay,
return to
so
that.
no, now here's one of the things that like I'm really trying to understand your judgment here and where you're coming from and like what you really see. So when you think that the average, so what percent of households do you think that the people do genuinely want it's good fit it's good faith in their motivations in the
How
family?
many?
Yeah. Like you think it's 5%? Do you
How?
think it's not 95% of the households operate like this of the judgment claim you just made?
All right. So, like, what percentage of households do I feel are judging uh, their fellow members on a good scale?
You said
Um,
they want the best for them and things like that. The verbiage you just used.
I say at least 75% of households are like that. Have
I think it's I think it's 8%. I think we're
really?
so in the shitter. Okay, so
You need to get out
yeah,
of the city, man.
okay, no, but hold on a second. Like, have you seen the loneliness crisis statistics? Have you seen the suicide rate statistics? Have you seen the substance abuse? Like, in so many ways, it's showing how broken we are as human beings. And of what I watch the most, it is interpersonal relationship conflict inside of reality TV shows and scripted television shows. And I know that that is not 100% representative, and I could be missing a lot. And I need way more data. I'm only having a maybe here. But what I'm seeing is that the trust is so low because the contempt is so high. So there's ranges of
Hmm.
care, but a lot of hate too. And you can see this inside of a relationship of a marriage of what we're seeing right now with the divorce rate. Or okay, how much spite have you seen on between men and women over even just the last 5 years of social media? I see high rates of spite.
Uh,
It seems like both sides just hate each other. The men think it's all women's fault. Women think it's all men's fault. Neither side's taking ownership for their shit. It's just high levels of spite, schadenfreude, and mockery. It's what I see between those two groups.
right, but people that comment are there's more people that engage with social media than actually comment on social media. And the people who do comment are more motivated to share their ideas and present themselves in a more favorable light in order
I
to
agree with
garner
you.
sympathy.
There's a lot of complicated things to ensure the data that we're getting and the judgments we were able to make. I agree with you. You're making a good point, and there's probably many more we need to care for. But I'm just trying to show that, at least from my view of my judgment, like, it's bad. We're so bad. Like that one that I've been trying to get you to watch. The one where a woman goes from a ultra orthodox Jewish community to the CEO of the World Agency. She's married in the first season, so is her daughter, and then they're both divorced. But the end and is constant. There, you were seeing
We
this incredible conflict over arguing over what is the best idea, over
we
long list of
watched
things of even
we
things of. Go
we
ahead,
wa-
go ahead. We watched some of
we
it
yeah,
before.
we watched that together. So that's
And
all I was gonna say. Go ahead.
this is what I'm seeing in the vast majority of interpersonal relationships. Everyone's bad at arguing. So because we're bad at arguing, people are just vying for the throne of the room, trying to show I'm the dominant one, I make the decisions, and you submit. And like this is why like we went from a patriarchy to a matriarchy. So like even there, like I'm sure you've seen like how much the Marxist ideology and different things like that have been trying to break up the nuclear family. Like the fourth ways of feminism and the ideas coming from there. How much these things have just been bastardizing the family unit, the husband and wife, from being able to actually be cohesive, socially cohesive on their value system. It's just more caused insane amounts of chaos to the value system where they can't figure out what's right and what's wrong. So one person usually, if they want to stay in the relationship, will just go, I submit, and the other person's. So we just have this dominant submissive dichotomy of who's right and who's in charge.
Well, yes, there has to be someone who leads and some who follow. Like you can't have a society on consensus, on pure consensus. In order to properly navigate yourself, you have to. Uh, there has to be a dominant individual in order to make those calls. That's why we have leaders. It's, mm, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I thought you could see me. I had
No, I'm driving right
just
now.
while you were talking, I just got up and walked away. So I'm not against leadership. In fact, I'm for leadership. I'm for hierarchy. The problem with hierarchy, though, is when the leader cannot be questioned. They don't know how to care if they're wrong. And again, we go back to like the whole Furbrizer thing. Take any complicated, high stakes issues that it grossly affects the emotional and physical well being of kids, and then one parent, the leader, is wrong. They're wrong. They're very wrong, and they cannot care if they're wrong. And then this is why the resentment and contempt builds, and why ideological conflict has to be resolved, and what form of warfare isn't being resolved. If the person says, well, I'm the leader, I'm the household, I make the rules, that's a call to authority logical fallacy that they don't know to care for. They're like, actually, no, I need to go through your logic. I'm not going to just avoid and dismiss it all. But this is one of the things that I'm trying to show, that this is specifically why people can't be and maintain good faith when they started out very good faith. They love each other, husband, wife, parent, child, but the contempt continues to build over time because ideological conflict has to be resolved. There isn't just the Furbrizer method. There's an incredibly, like, even you just thinking and seeing social media and the problems there's conflict there. One parent thinks they should ban social media, and the other one only sees the good, and they both can't come to any manner of, oh, here's a threshold of agreement. We're going to allow social media, but only with these restrictions, or we're not going to allow it at all. But they can't come to that agreement, so therefore this contentious argument continues to rear its ugly head, especially when either parent ever sees the problems occurring to their child. Like, hey, I think my child is being suffering right now from social media. I need to ban social media right now. And then the other one's saying, no, we can't do that. And then one of them was already the leader before that, and just changing it from social media to Netflix to the list of things that parents that are moderate to high stake things that affect the financial, physical and emotional well-being of their kids. It's long, they're complicated, there's so many of them. We could bring in the trans issues, we could bring in how much the food industry has been poisoning the fuck out of the average American. We could talk about the how much the medical industry and their rates have been the massive financial burden on how many Americans and how many people suffer from that, and they're already being kicked down, they're already physically ill, and they're yelling and screaming one at each other every day. Like, the list
Yeah.
here, it's so long, it's so massive. Um, and so I
Yeah.
wish you were right. I wish it was 75% that all have good faith, but this is why I have that diagram. I don't know if I showed it to you, but I called it contempt rising. We're manufacturing contempt.
Mhm.
And so people that
Um.
love each other, this is why I so fight for it so much, because I have this. I even have this right now. I have it to where I'm only mildly with both my baby mamas have um like things could be worse, but they're not great either. They're not even good. There's some things that are good, but overall, like if any amount of actual conflict came up between us, we're not going to reach a threshold of agreement. Like I would, it's possible. It's extremely unlikely. Jody's just going to think she's right. I'm going to think I'm right, and she's not going to hear me. She's not going to engage my claim. She's going to avoid them all. She's just going to make the decision, and then I have to go. Well, can I just suck it up again and continue down the path that I need to, or go down the spiral of figuring out all the different ways I need to be able to force her to do what I want, because she's not going to hear any of my logic. She's going to literally, actually, 100% not even act like I said a fucking thing. She literally just, I can show extremely high rates of where here's my concerns for Arya and no reply. And most of this is around me seeing Arya and having her. So I understand what manifests contempt extremely, extremely well. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. I'm not saying I'm at 100%, but I think I'm well over 75% of knowledge of understanding what manifests contempt between two people over things when they care about. We have goals. We can't even agree on what the goals are. We can't agree on what the problems are. We can't even agree on how to hear one another. We're dealing with the most complicated topic known to man. If it was so simple, we would have figured it out by now. But I also constantly run into the simplicity bias. It boggles my mind how people can even remotely think that anything is simple. And they'll bring up examples like 2 plus 2 equals 4. Or many other simple things they can simply say that are true, that are true. But the thing that they're fucking missing is, if I were to talk them out, and even Ben Shapiro makes his argument on Lex Friedman, that if they were in World War II Germany, when Hitler rose to power, they would have been every other person there. They would have not been different. They would have, because it's only as good as the current common sense judgment of what you think is right and what you think you should do. And this high level tribalistic thing of us needing groups and the corruption in our common sense of not knowing how to fix tribalism, and these dark sides that make us use the unhealthiest forms of warfare that build high levels of contempt for. I try to make the argument to people that I actually think that there were a lot of Jewish people that hated Hitler and treated Hitler very poorly, and that's why he fucking hates Jewish people. And they think that that is an insanely absurd idea. And then I want to show them, hey, Israel versus Palestine. Like, Palestine might as well all just be Hitler. And yeah, they all treat each other. They both have, like, when Israel judges itself, it uses a toxic nice bias, and then it uses a contempt bias against um uh Hamas and Palestine, and then vice versa. And guess what propaganda is? So I have in that document of, like, some of the words people use, like today, is like, oh, coping, you're you're taking high levels of copium. Oh, he's coping right now. And this is when a person is doing a toxic nice bias. But I also figured out that propaganda, that's all it is. It's just the content bias and nice bias. If it is no content bias and no nice bias, there's literally no propaganda. It's just good information from your government that they're actually putting out. There's no bias making it seem better than it is, and there's no bias making it seem worse than it is. It's just, but again, this is the judgment standard by which people put things out. But that's all it is. It's all we're constantly dealing with is the content bias and nice bias over and over and over and over and over again. Everyone's doing
it. Yeah, it is. You can't put it. You're correct. It's content bias, nice bias, but the standard upon which they judge whether something is good or bad is well, like I said before, social cohesion.
I'm gonna go pee. Continue.
All right. Like, what are my peers thinking? What do my peers believe? What my peers are telling me? And how do I best contort myself in order to appease my peers? And that's where we get the content bias, nice bias thing, and they will segregate out information that would threaten the information that they're getting and that they're receiving. They'll filter that out on purpose, whether or not they know it or not. Then they will. Yeah. Where was I? Yeah, they're cherry picking. They're self-selecting out information, and it's all about. It's not about what's factually true. It's about what your social peers, care about it. And that I'm not going to repeat myself. You know the evolutionary psychology of that. I've gone through it enough times. So that's where all the tribalism is adherence to a social group. That's what tribalism. That's the definition of tribalism. Just you pick your tribe,
but it's the standard of the group, and as to whether or not criticism and dissent is allowed. And this is the thing that I'm trying to show that is extremely scary with Trump. That I'm seeing extreme high rates, like the highest rates I've ever seen of a large group, where they literally are not criticizing their leader because if they think that there's a lot of reasons why we can go through it, but it's because of these main rules instead of dark sides of tribalism, where whoever wins, I think there's an overall thing that's inside of our society or any society that is trying to use the battle of ideas to arrive, you're supposed to just debate and all these different things. In fact, Cenk Uygur's been making these arguments. I'm just like, what's going on? But damn it, I'm trying to regain my thoughts. Sorry.
Take your time.
Oh, the scary thing about Trump. Yeah, where he can't hear any amount of criticism. He literally, I can just show so many examples where him and his base, everyone is thinking truth is simple. And instead of understanding that there are portions of truth, and then we're only giving a certain portion of truth, and then we're also missing things and we're wrong. Everyone's just overestimating that what they say is I remember watching Sneeko watch Andrew Tate, and then he's just looking at it and just saying everything he says is true. And I'm like, I think he's 40% right. But see, because Sneeko's judgment standard is so low. And again, he wasn't taught that. So when we bring these specific examples and many other things to the zeitgeist, we bring it to different thought leaders, and we start to get them to analyze and inspect these things. This is why we're going to just, in a short period of time, in less than 6 months, it's going to take off like wildfire, because everyone is wanting to actually stop hating each other. Both sides are actually talking about hate speech. Most of the PVD podcast was them talking about the hate speech coming from the left against Trump. That's what Trump Drain's messenger means. So, but it feels like the right doesn't even want to So it does feel like the right has massive cognitive dissonance here, where they can't admit hate speech exists. And I think the reason they can't admit that hate speech exists is because then we're going to try and ban it from platforms. And that's not what my argument is. I don't want to ban speech. We need, in fact, the examples you're giving earlier about these dark sense of tribalism, one of the things we have to be able to critically measure are thought control and expression control devices inside of the United States of America. The PC culture movement, very specifically, was a thought control expression control device. You're not allowed to think that idea. You're not allowed to say that thing. You can't use that word. And these things all, and this is one of the ways that we gave birth, the left gave birth to Trump. I wasn't privy to the conversations of like creating PC culture movement, but I definitely supported it for quite a long time, thinking this is what, and this is one of the deep philosophical things we're constantly dealing with. Which group is writing the rules that the average person is supposed to use that actually does the less harm? They think they're doing a really good thing. They think that they're solving a complicated problem of why a person would look at another person and say, you're a fucking retard, and all these other hateful things that come out of a person to like, Nazism and stuff like that. But because they don't understand the deep philosophical problem of why a person would ever have hate in their heart when they speak about somebody else, they don't understand the contempt bias and all these other things. They come up with a rule that doesn't fix the problem and actually only makes it worse. And it keeps it there because a lot of the things we can implement have illusionary effects. If we're not allowed to say the word retarded, and to be PC, we ban that, and then you say the word retarded, I get to say, bro, we banned that word, and if you comply, then it seems like it's working. And if you don't comply and I ban you, it still seems like it's working. Like we're controlling the spaces of where it is, and this implementation of banning words is working. It's an illusionary effect, though, because you haven't solved the problem. That's why anyone ever wants to use that to convey what they want. We can see these examples inside of grade school kids where they, instead of saying the word stupid, they're not allowed to say the word stupid. So they'll actually replace it with the word silly. So then instead of silly being just being you actually are silly, you're being goofy, you're being fun, you're being funny. It's not that silly. Silly's a slur here. And because they, instead of saying stupid, they have to use a different word in its place because the word was banned.
It's the George Carlin skit. You know that George Carlin skit? Where he goes through, like, we can't say PTSD. We have to call it shell. Well, first it was shell shock. And then that became offensive. And then you had to say PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And then that became offensive, and so on and so forth, all the way down the line.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not against rewording things. I think we need to for example, instead of saying devil's advocate, we should say steel manning because it makes the thing better. So we should be updating and labeling your words, but the reason we do anything is extremely important. If we don't know what we're doing, we can cause a lot of harm by relabeling things. In fact, that's what the whole 1984 thing of doublespeak is, and this is literally the toxic nice bias, where, well, I don't want the thing that I've done be as bad as it is. So it's not cheating, it's and I rephrase it to something else that seems way less than it actually was. I'm trying to downplay my bad behavior. And how many examples there is of like the pharmaceutical industry and so many other places doing this in legal speak, this constant double speak to downplay the culpability, the responsibility that they should have on their shoulders for things. Like, didn't they do that with gain of function research or something like that? They tried to change the words. But this is just something that's been inside of our society that we have, once we identify what these are, it's contempt bias and toxic nice bias. There's a lot more to understand here, but this is a really large portion because this is what creates the double standards everyone is using at all ever to judge anyone. Oh, by the way, they just banned people from saying Zionist on Twitch. That's an interesting development. Like, see, all these different things are changing. They banned the word Zionist. So we're still in the PC culture movement where we're banning words. We're seeing that as a way to corral people's speech. We're still not solving the problem of why people would, because actually, do you know what? Do you know what's inside the verbiage for the ban? Is
Uh,
I know you don't know, and I'm sorry I'm phrasing it like this. I'm just so excited about it. It's so interesting, man. It They didn't ban the whole word of Zionist. People are allowed to say it. They're just not allowed to say it in a mean way. If they say it in a mean way, they get banned. Like the actual like channel, Twitch channel gets a temporary ban for doing the sin. It's really fucking interesting. And
huh.
it isn't the whole word is banned. It's only if it's bad faith, if it's like a slur.
Okay. Yeah, that seems silly, but yeah, you're right. That is interesting.
Well, the left has been creating. So again, we have to look at the common sense of the average person that largely dictates the actions they'll do. Eye for an eye, turn the other cheek, hate the sin, not the sinner, believe all women. So when when the left has been constantly creating these rules for the common sense of the average person, if this is what it means to be a good person today, and then they're not debating it, and then the average person's not debating it, they're just accepting it and going, yeah, it sounds good, let's fucking do it. So why wouldn't I do that? It sounds great. And then and this is one of the core problems for every group, and this literally deals with every topic from philosophical to political to everything. We're all doing cost benefit analysis, and then it's of what the problem is. So they see a problem with sexual impropriety going against men, men versus women for the most part. It goes the other way a little bit too, but still there is a large problem. They needed to get fixed. The Me Too movement happened. But because they didn't internally debate, okay, what rules should we put forward, and how, what are the principles, and what's the nuance people have to use to make sure that we get everything we want out of this. We want men to be held liable for their actions, and we want to prevent future harm from occurring. But they wrote a shit rule. They wrote a really bad rule, and this is one of the things that I think that another thing that I've identified is that there's corruption inside of our rule sets that we're using. So like the crabs in bucket rule set, and in the corruption in our rule sets, this would be corruption. There is value, so it's again cost benefit analysis of weighing the value of the rule. So there is benefit in believe all women to whatever degree it ever gets any amount of the men that actually did X, Y, and bad things that happened. So there's value in the action. But let's look at the harm. Any woman that was ever lying to any degree literally was being believed in the court of public opinion, which we need to see is extremely critical. We're constantly all judging each other in the court of public opinion. Everyone is. Um, and so it's a really, really massive tool that is being used everywhere for a political sphere as well as anything else. Cancel culture would have no power if we weren't judging each other in the court of public opinion. But people would get canceled. They would lose their jobs. They would lose their family, their friends. And this is one of the things that I think has sparked off the loneliness crisis inside of men. Not the only one, but this is a contributor for it. And this also makes it to where women can never be criticized, especially on this point of any amount of sexual impropriety or what happened, and gives so much unfairness to one side. And so until that built what happened in the behavior economy of the United States of America, as more people did that thing, we then started to see the detriment to the rule that was being adhered to. So the more there was adhered to, there was value and something happened. But look at this fucking harm that's happening. And then the more people that got slapped in the face with it, where it was they were doing it, but then they believed in it. They think it was good. They don't think there's any problem with it. But then it happens to their brother. And so differently these people were waking up to these bad rules that the left was creating. And I think that when not just on Believe All Women, but all these other ones, all these constant failed ideologies essentially that cause more harm than value. And I think largely I think that's the biggest reason Trump won. Is because all the problems get so bad, and then it's like the emperor has no clothes things finally like hits enough people to where they're like, fuck this. No more.
Yeah, like just quickly, I
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
of this is that um like the everyone thinks believe all women and they don't question the logical inverse of that statement. The
Right.
logical inverse in that statement is doubt all men or
Don't
condemn all
don't
men.
no, don't believe men, right? The exact specific would be believe all women, don't believe all men. Would be the exact, wouldn't it?
No, no, believe all women, don't believe all men.
Yeah, that's what I said. You said
You
condemn and
said
stuff like
some,
that.
some.
No, I
You
said
said
no.
some.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to say that. But yeah, no, yeah. So the inverse of that would be don't believe all men. Yeah, yeah, I hear you. Like it's like the subtext, the things not said. They're saying the quiet part out loud if they actually did say it. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. If you thought about it for more than 1 second, and
right.
like you're actually engaging with it, like outside of your social, brain, your tribalism, then you would come to that conclusion. You would have to come to that conclusion, which is horrible. I don't think.
Yeah,
I think the
but
problem is that people
this
don't.
is what this is why Jordan Peterson doesn't understand what agreeableness is. Like they're just agreeing immediately, hasty judgment. Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's fucking do it. With no skepticism, no inquiry. Not, they don't even know they're supposed to. They just know that the good people wrote the good rules and they follow them. Every religion operates like that. That's why the left is a religion. Liberalism is a religion. It's just different. It's obviously differences, but at its core philosophy, it is. It's creating morality of what's right and what's wrong, and then there are knowledge source authorities that promote it, and then the congregation that adheres.
Yeah, it's a set of beliefs. Yeah. I think like a big hindrance to humanity in general is that we don't have enough consciousness in order to take in all these factors and like consider them.
Yes, yes. There's too many.
Well,
There's too many things to analyze. That's why we have to come together to do it together. No one's going to see this on their own. I don't see it all. You don't see it all. No one does. But go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, if there's there's not enough consciousness on the average person in order to like take in all these considerations and be aware of multiple different factorials and be able to self-criticize, and that's would be like the biggest hindrance, like socially. Like humanity is still on survival mode, like from our prehistory, and that's why tribalism is so important. Is like we're running off of old programming. We need, like, individually and like collectively we have to raise conscious awareness of what's going on in order to give a fuck, because like everyone's really competent and have enough consciousness to, I don't know, be Elon Musk and fucking launch rockets into space, and like people are really good at certain jobs and they know all the intricacies of building a house or building an airplane or flying airplane, but they don't have any more conscious, like like consideration for anything else. They're not aware. Everyone
Sure.
should do mushrooms. That's
Well,
my point. Everyone should do mushrooms.
yeah, but like we're about to
Crop
have
dust
the
DMT.
second enlightenment. Sure, and maybe everyone's going to do that. But yeah,
Crop
maybe
dust
everyone's
it
going to
over the major cities.
start microdosing psilocybin mushrooms because we're going to team problem solve. That's what we're all going to do. But this is always about this team problem solving of how we make decisions in any given society. You either have a dictator, but in order, this is one of the arguments that I'm trying to get really well constructed. In order to have, maintain, and improve a democracy, you have to be measuring high rates of cooperation in the battle of ideas where people are learning where they're wrong. If they're not, the resentment will build, the resentment and contempt will build, and you guys will destroy each other. You will be a snake eating its own tail. There's no way around this. I can show this right now with with one simple logic both sides are presenting that there's high rates of patterns for. examples of, I mean, where they're both saying, well, I have to smear them, mock them, tear them down, not take them seriously. Because if I don't do that, it hurts us. It hurts our side, makes us
Well, it
look like
hurts
fools.
cohesion. Yeah, it hurts the social cohesion.
So both
And
sides, and this is one of the arguments this is where I can use Destiny's arguments of his views on Israel versus Palestine to show where he sees that both sides have high incentives to continue to war. And I'm trying to show, and I want to show that that's the same true for the rules both the left and the right are using in order to engage in the battle of ideas. Both sides are doing low value, high harm actions, only seeing that they're valuable, not understanding the harm that they do, thinking that they have to do it because the other side is doing it. So essentially, it's being in a boxing ring, and both sides are hitting below the belt, and they're not only are they not being penalized, not only are they not getting away with it, the referees are cheering them on. It's just there's two referees, and it's both voter bases. It's both the main supporters of both sides. Yeah, they're cheering on, like, yes, mock them, yes, tell them how bad and stupid and retarded they are. Um, of those that are getting involved, and this is why it's so terrible that so many people are neutral, um, and have stopped wanting to engage. It makes sense why they don't want to engage. It's looking at politics and listening to it is extremely difficult because there's so little good things happening in the conversations where they're just constant smear pieces from whatever side you're looking at. That's why when people saw like
and
go ahead.
yeah, and also they don't want to engage with the subject matter at all and entertain any sort of counter narrative to
Right.
whatever
Yeah.
social cohesion that they have.
Correct. And we're going to show that when we're measuring these things, that social scientists should know that if we're measuring any of these specific things, if you're measuring just specifically contempt and spite, mockery, schadenfreude, all these different things, and there are high rates, not just of like oh, it's in these crazy whack out like homeless people or Vietnam veterans that are cracked out on Agent Orange or whatever. It's it's both the average base on both sides and all of the thought leaders that your society is about to collapse. You no longer are going to have one. It is just like a husband and wife. It is exactly like a husband and a wife having such high level of contempt for one another. Not one issue can they agree upon about what's supposed to happen in the household, and they're both fighting over. It'd be like them both fighting over the Titanic. They're both doing whatever they can to control the wheel for however long they are able to NyQuil the other person out. Well, I put NyQuil in there, until they kill each other. We're trying to do this high level like thing that came out of the Enlightenment period of the sanctity of caring about your fellow man, and like this line we don't want to cross of like we'll even uphold Israel to some degree of like, hey, yeah, if they did that, we would admonish and shame Israel if they did that type thing. So there's a line that people don't want to cross. I don't want to kill the other person. This is a really bad thing, unacceptable thing in our society. We do not kill each other. This is not how we resolve disagreements. But at some point, they're going to kill each other because because it literally is 100% impossible to avoid it. They can't leave the ship. We can't the left and the right. We even saw when all those voting things came in. It isn't like all the left lives on the left side of the country and then the right lives on the right, and like everyone in every state. There's just so much red and blue all over the place. If we broke out an actual civil war, it's going to be really, really bad. There are going to be things that, just like the Fulbright method, that causes harm that Trump is going to do. He's going to avoid internal criticism. He's going to avoid external criticism. And this specifically is why, just let me finish, and I know this sounds crazy, but this is how he is like Hitler. But this is also how Biden is like Hitler. Any leader of any hierarchical leadership that controls the national conversation, even if they're not specifically a dictator, They do not take the other side seriously, will foment so much resentment and contempt over however much they think that particular issue, as well as all the other ones, cause harm to their side.
Right.
I don't
I would.
think I don't think Trump's going to put people in gas chambers. I don't think he's going to try and kill all Jewish people or any group of people. I don't think he's like Hitler like that.
I don't. Yeah, it's not helpful anymore to use Tiny Mustache Man as an example because he's the left has been screaming Hitler this entire time, and it's lost all meaning. I think we better served by using other words than Tiny Mustache Man because at this point, Tiny Mustache Man sounds like a really cool dude. If Trump is Tiny Mustache Man.
Yeah, you're gonna only make Hitler look better.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Hitler wasn't wrong.
Everyone's a basket of deplorables. Uh, I know. I'm a little bit skeptical on how much the left and the right. What would be a good question? Is that what would be a good study to have? Like, how much engagement the left has with the right and vice versa. I think we disagreed on one thing. Like the the right thinks the left is misguided, while the left thinks the right is evil. And I actually do need to do some research. I'd ask Aiden Paladin about that. Like,
So what are the
hmm,
things that I'm going to do in proposal to the left? Which is why in many ways I'm glad that the right has won, because it's very possible they're not even capable of doing what I'm about to, I need to ask one side to do. So if you're in a boxing ring and both sides have been hitting below the belt for a long time, but at some point we're just going to kill each other. We're just going to break all the systems that allows for us to have any amount of, measured health and as we measure us as a nation. Just hitting below the belt, we're just bastardizing and breaking our systems and the rule of law and all these other things. Our republic processes, democratic ones. There, anyways, that I'm going to challenge the left to be the ones that, well, because I can show so many times where Destiny's saying that there was this even this one of where he was doing this thing before the election where he would have on a bunch of Republicans on a Twitter space to debate January 6th um and there was like this lull in it at one point, and the original guy like Pisco that he usually does it with had already left, and he's talking to Josiah, and he's like, don't give them anything. So like if they say, hey, yeah, Kamala Harris did bailout funds during BLM, don't even give them that because they give us nothing. Is basically the thing, and both sides see this. I'm not talking about that one instance of Destiny saying that. This is something that both sides immediately see. I can show this exact same thing going to the worst former reality TV show where it's literally really low white trash women in a house living together and they're actually getting in fistfights, tearing each other's hair out. I can show the exact same thing there, where you can tell that the other person's your enemy, that the situation is unfair for you, they do not care for you, and there's many different things that will act off as any amount of active defection to where, oh, this is my enemy and fuck you. So whenever engaging in the battle of ideas, it is absolutely, will never admit my faults and I'll never admit you're right. And this keeps us in this cycle when both sides will constantly say, I'm never going to admit that you're right. just on the fact that you never admit that I am. We are in this constant cycle of never being able to use the battle of ideas to resolve any of our ideological conflict. And it isn't like anyone's just 100% right on anything. No one fucking is. The topics are just too complicated. And so we can't learn from one another, for one. And two, we can't reach this threshold of agreement. And we have to be able to do these things anyways. So I'm going to get the left to start, like, we're going to go. We're going to relitigate. We're going to go through our PC culture movement. We're going to go through Believe All Women. We're going to go through all of the ideology forthwith feminism has put out. We're going to go through liberalism itself. We're going to go through all of the left on our ability to construct rules that we think the common sense person should have that are good things, and show that we're never fucking debating these things. We have tenuous good logic at best, and most of the time we only have good vibes and intentions, which is one of the things this guy that's been debating Destiny recently, his name's P.F. Chung, and that's one of the things that he thinks that all that we need is vibes. It's all we need. We just need intuition. It's all we need. And I'm trying to show that we will devolve and destroy the most prosperous society if everyone actually only did that. Literally only did that. Because there is some nuance of where, like, Destiny gave P.F. Chung an example of, like, do you have like a person's driving in a car, you have no expectance that they're just going to, in any amount of probability, they're just going to jump up on the sidewalk and run you over. But if it's the purge and it's your ex-girlfriend's current boyfriend, and he knows that you used to emotionally abuse her, and you fucked her last weekend, and all these other things, that whatever, high extreme levels of hate they have for this person, it's like, yeah, this person's probably gonna get up and jump on me, and run me over. But even there, that's in that intuition and that feeling, there's logic that is going to dictate a decision. And the more information that you're given and the confidence you have in that, like if I gave you a vaccine that you actually thought was 99% effective and the death rate is 80%, you're going to take it. It's literally just an extremely simple cost benefit analysis. You believe that it's really extremely confident, it's going to work for you, and the risk to not do it is extremely high. Anyone in that scenario, and this is what comes down to our judgment system, would easily do that. The problem is that if you think that it has a 0.01% chance of helping you at all and causing lots of harm, and then the exact opposite, you think it's going to the thing it's going to fix is not even a problem, you're not going to take it.
Hey, I'm gonna bounce off for a sec, but
yeah, sure.
Yeah, before I go, I got a computer, but it's kind of old, and I think I need to update it and replace some stuff. It has some old RAM and has a old CPU, and like I want to upgrade it. I want to get a better graphics card, okay graphics card, and do a few things. I also want to, put like HDMI in it, and I don't know a whole lot about computers, but I just know that it's old. It works, but it's old. So the reason why I'm going to get a microphone. Not on top of my head.
So you're saying good enough just good enough to do OBS recording with YouTube videos and stuff, something along those lines, to create content. Okay.
It's like 20 years old, so yeah. The reason I'm going to get a microphone.
You're not exaggerating.
Nah, I am exaggerating a little bit. I think we built it. It's like it was handmade, like in the Smilodon case. It was built pretty darn good back then. I say 10 years ago.
Oh.
Yeah.
It could be pretty decent if it was like the i7.
Right. I can.
Yeah, just give me the specs, and I'll let you know.
All right. Yeah. When I get home, I can. If you're still, it's gonna take me like 5 minutes to get home, and then I can hop back on and let you know.
Yeah, sure.
But
That sounds
if you're
good.
not on, then I can
Oh,
send you a message.
yeah, I'll still be on.
Alrighty. Well, in that case, I'll talk to you in a bit.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Lighthouse.
Bye.
Bye. All I can do is do it here. 16. I wonder if you probably can't hear his music. It's a little distracting for me though, but that's fine. I should be able to just get some. Maybe this one. Yeah, this one. Ew, I need to write down. Shit. Change the default, right? Yeah, I gotta figure that out. How do you change the default? Change default. All right, that is really loud. I'll turn it down. That's nice and loud. You know what? I just realized that this is a brand new setup in terms of like I did a fresh install of Windows 10. Let's see. Start recording. Now I need to go and see the video.
Not too much, just this and that.
Analysis, you believe that it's really extremely confident, it's going to work for you, and the risk to not do it is extremely high. Anyone in that scenario, this is what comes down to our judgment system. And I'm gonna have to go to the store. Okay, I need to go do things. Fuck.